But boy, did this one test me. I Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today I just wanted to talk to you about the actual experience of wearing this costume. I know I've shown you the design inspiration on here and how to make it. I'll link those videos down below if you're interested. But today I wanted to talk to you specifically about the experience of wearing it. And I didn't think I'd have to make this video because usually I just, I make the thing and I stop. That's it. That's what the content is. However, this is the first time where I've properly made a costume that I wore out all day, like a proper historical costume. I think in particular because this was such a distinctive experience, I wanted to bring it up more as a word of warning than anything. So for a little bit of context, in case this is the only video you're catching, I decided to make a Taylor Swift inspired historical costume to wear to the Eras tour. This is because I mainly make historically inspired costumes and I really wanted to make something for the concert because it was a rare opportunity to, join something I love, which is making things, and popular media and an event that I was it was like the holy trinity of everything I wanted that I could possibly want to make a costume. For this costume, I decided to make it inspired on her Torture Poets Department dress. I thought it had really strong historical influences, which I discussed in the first video, and I thought it would translate really well into a historical costume. And most importantly, I wanted to make something that I could rewear. So in my concept, I decided to make separate stays in a petticoat out of historically accurate techniques and materials that I could then rewear for a historical event if I wanted to. All good. I managed to achieve that, I think. However, I was quite tight on the deadline. I only started this project about 3 weeks before the concert, and I did decide to hand sew most of the stays, which really set me back and I didn't have the time for. In the process of hand sewing the stays, I was very short on time. I didn't get to actually try them on until like 2 days before the concert, and so I didn't have time to make any changes. And now it comes to a word of warning. When you're sewing, this is something I never really do myself. So this is something I've definitely now learned to integrate into my sewing process. But you should wear what you're making before you finish it. And I mean wear, I don't mean try on. Because I tried on the stays, I thought they were a little bit tight and I thought, oh no, but that's gonna have to do because we're this far in. I didn't have time to fix it. With stays, you can actually fix them. You can just undo a seam and add a little extra panel or something. I could have fixed them, but I just didn't have the time. However, I only tried it on for about 5 minutes and then I took them off and then I had to continue sewing. And this was my issue because I think if I'd worn the stays for more than 15 minutes, I would have realized that it had some pretty serious issues that I had to resolve before I could wear these for 8 hours. Yeah, so I think I will start with telling you the overarching issues and then I will show you the costume as it came out of the concert. So for a little bit more context, I got dressed around 1:30 in the afternoon and doors opened I think at 5 p.m. and I think Taylor Swift came on at 6:45, something like that, around there. And then the concert was done around 10:15 and then I think I got home around 1 a.m. So I wore the costume for about 9 hours, and you'll realize that that timing doesn't line up with me getting home. The costume made it through the concert, but I didn't. I got all the way to the midnight set, which is the last set in the concert, about the last 15 minutes of the concert, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I had thankfully packed a t-shirt in my bag because I was afraid that with the new security measures, they would pick at the metal boning in the stays. So if I had to change, I had something to change into. But so I put the t-shirt over my head and in the stadium, because I was not going to leave the stadium for anything, I started unlacing the stays behind my back and I managed to, with the help of my friend, shimmy them off with the t-shirt on. Simply because I just couldn't take it anymore. And this is because these stays are intrinsically ill-fitting. They do not fit me well. And I'm a big defender that stays and corsets are not uncomfortable. Or I think what really bothers me is the concept that women would have worn these garments every day for 400 years, even if they were terribly uncomfortable, which I don't think is accurate. So I don't think stays and corsets were ever as uncomfortable as popular media makes it out to be. But boy, did this one test me. I don't think the problem is the stays. I think the problem is me, and not as in my body. I think I didn't fit it properly to my body. So every time you buy a pattern that is not drafted to yourself, and even when you draft a pattern yourself, you always have to make changes. And as I mentioned in my making up video, I did make a couple of changes to the mock-up, but I only made one mock-up and one row of alterations. I only wore that mock-up for about 5-10 minutes. I didn't have the time to really realize what was wrong with it. And I think making it in the correct materials with the additional layer of fabric made the stays, number one, smaller and more structured, so that it had less give. The mock-up had way more give. And I think that's why they ended up smaller. But it wasn't even that they were too tight, like I could handle it. It was the front armhole. So this is something that I actually mentioned in the mock-up, and this is something that's happened to me across every single pair of 19th century, 18th century stays, is that they're too wide at the front for me. And I actually accommodated for this. I already made a change to the pattern, and I lowered, so 18th century stays, they dip like this, and they come out to your armhole with like a little hill here. And I did move that forwards and down, because I usually have to. I just didn't do it by enough. And as soon as I show you the stays, you'll understand why. But this was the biggest issue, is that the stays didn't fit me properly. And so what was actually happening to me is that throughout the whole afternoon and evening, I was also, I didn't wear them with a chemise, or a shift, which is what you're meant to wear underneath. But because she didn't wear them on stage, I really, please do not wear stays or corsets without chemises. It's so uncomfortable. It's really not worth it. I got chafing all over the underarm. It was painful for the whole time. But what was actually really happening is that the stays didn't fit me properly. I think the waist wasn't located properly, and the back, I think I have a sway back, and I didn't make a proper adjustment for that, because what was happening was that by the end of the concert, I had horrible back pain. Like, I had shooting pain that came up to my shoulders of like a trapped nerve or something. It was incredibly painful, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Like, I had to sit very still, very proper, and every time I moved, it really hurt. And obviously this is for a few different reasons. I have bad posture, I have bad back pain all the time anyway, just because I sit at the desk all the time. So like, it's not to say that stays are generally uncomfortable, it's that all these factors together made these stays very uncomfortable for me and my body specifically. Which makes me really sad, because I spent so much time on them, but I am going to try to fix them. I don't know if I can fix the waist issues as it's done, but I can definitely fix the armhole issues. So I've been rambling for way too long. Let's take you to see the state of the costume, and I will sit back down and tell you the changes that I want to make. Okay, so here is the costume. It doesn't look too bad on camera like this, to be honest, but as soon as you zoom in, you'll see the issue. Okay, so this bit is the bit that I was talking about that was very painful, and as you can see, it's got pretty severe sweat marks because it was so far into my armhole. And obviously I was dancing, and like at some point my watch told me I was doing cardio, so it was a very active 8 hours. But yeah, so this is one of the issues I'm gonna have to fix, is that there's a lot of this sweat staining, and this is why wearing a chemise is so important, because it keeps the sweat off the silk. So this is the main issue. And the other issue I had is that when I got to the boning, I was so short on time that I really didn't make sure that these were short enough. And as you can see here, this was the last reason why I took it off, is that actually the boning broke through the binding and it was digging in to my armhole even more. So what I'm going to do to fix this is that I am going to unbind this edge. I'm going to lower this armhole curve here, and I'm gonna narrow this strappy bit and bring it out as to the front as I can. Then I'll have to shorten all the boning, make a new eyelet here, and then this is gonna have to be a bit further up. I think that will fix it. And then to try and fix some of the staining, I'm going to do some experiments with some scrap fabric. And I've heard that spraying on vodka can be really helpful. So I think that's what I'm going to try. Just spot treat it, I think, is the way. And then I'm going to try the stays on again, and I'm going to wear them for a while to try and understand where the issues are. But I have a feeling that the issues are here, because when I try them on, I feel like the stays sit really far back down on my back. And I think that means is that the waist is too low at the back, and so like it puts undue pressure on my lower back here So those are the most significant changes that I need to make to the stays. You can see that there's some staining throughout. Oh God, I can't believe I spent so long hand sewing this only to stain it completely at the concert. The skirt is okay. The thing I need to do to make it historical is I'm going to remove these snaps that I temporarily used just to hike up the skirts. I need to iron it to make all this ink disappear and also take out all of these creases, obviously. But I think the hem also needs a lot of work. So to finish the flounce, I just, as you can see, I just pinked it, which is a very traditional and historical way to do it. But unfortunately, my modern fabric isn't as densely woven as their taffetas used to be. And so it started fraying almost immediately. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off all of this, and then I'm going to do a rolled hem across the bottom of the flounce. The flounce is only at the front, so it's not too bad. And it also did the same thing at the top. So I might try and finish the top edge as well. And this is just to make sure that it lasts a bit longer. And also the flounce is only at the front, so it's not like it's a huge undertaking. The hem is a little bit dirty, so I can try and spot clean that. But actually, I think the hem facing made it a bit sturdier, so it did all right, you know? But yeah, so those are the things, the little historical upgrades I'm going to do in this video, and I'm going to try to fix all the things that actually ended up wrong with this costume. But yeah, I just wanted to show you the experience of wearing it because I think that's something that's often missing from the videos. Yeah, I guess let's get to work and fix up this costume. Okay, so your best friend when undoing is the unpicker, a close friend of mine here on the channel. So I've literally just removed all of the lacing and I'm just going to unpick the binding here, redraw this new line, chop it off, and I'm going to shorten the boning, and then I'm going to try it on, which is what I should have done in the beginning. And I'm going to try it on when I can wear it for at least an hour and really see if that does enough. Obviously this compromises on the design and style lines of the stays, like the front won't be super historically accurate because I'm going to have to narrow the strap a lot just to make it work, because this is the kind of thing that you should make, the kind of change that you should make the pattern before you cut it out, but not an option. So let's just get to fixing. Okay, so the stays, the main difference I really had to do was that, as I mentioned, it was really uncomfortable under the armpit. I think that is because maybe I'm not as wide here, I don't know. I have to do this with every 18th century pair of stays and I didn't do it enough with this. So as you can see, I've unpicked the binding and I've just cut away some of the shape here so that this strap is actually narrower because of the shape, but I've actually cut out from the under the arm here. I've also shortened all the bones that would hit me under the arm here, and that is so much more comfortable than this side, which you can see is still the original, because it really digs into the side of the arm here. So I'm gonna wear them for an hour to really see if that's enough or if I need to cut into them more. The other thing is that the stays are a little bit tight. At the moment they're laced to have about a 2-inch gap or so at the back, and that's, I think, a little bit tighter than I would wear them normally, but I don't think it's quite enough to like add in. So the one thing you can do is add in panels here, either on this side, depending on what you prefer. You could add in a panel to let them out a little bit, but it's a lot of work for like to add a 1-inch panel on either side. So I think I'm just gonna leave them as it is for now, and this is the main difference I need to do. And then I just need to clean them up a little bit because there's some rust stains from sweating. But I think also the biggest difference is that I am wearing them over something this time, and that makes such a difference when wearing stays. I'm just wearing them over gym clothes because I was gonna go to the gym and the decision is unmade, so we're going to test out stays instead. But otherwise they are a lovely shape, and I think I've put so much work into them that I really want to make them work. So let's hope this is a good way to fix them. Okay, so the main most important update is now done, which was this really nice little rolled hem I did at the flounce here because it was already unraveling. and I think it looks really nice. I was thinking about finishing the top as well, but I actually think I might not bother. I might just retrim it with the pinking shears and hope for the best. But now the next step is actually to erase the writing, and I'm in two minds about this because I really love the look, but obviously it has faded like significantly since I first did it, and you know, the whole point was that it was removable. So I am going to now iron. I'm going to iron the petticoat and make all the writing disappear, hopefully. But I think it'll be either a really satisfying or really heartbreaking moment, so I'm gonna film it, obviously. Okay, so the very last thing I need to do to spruce up the costume after I wore it is to spritz up the stays. So I've got here a little bit of solution of hydrogen peroxide, and it's just like the kind you get for medical stuff, so like it's very low, it's 3%. But I've seen quite a few good results with using this to like spot treat, things like that. So I'm going to test it first on a little scrap of the silk. If that goes well, I'll spritz it all over the stays, and then I'll let it dry, and then I really want to do a full try on with everything. So I'm going to do the panniers, the petticoat and stays to show you how it could all be historically put together. I don't currently have an 18th century overdress that would work with this, but I've got the foundations for it, so I can make one. So yeah, but first, cleaning. Okay, so I thought I'd show you the historical layers that you can get out of this outfit or costume. So I've just got my historical 18th century chemise on, some stockings and some American Duchess shoes. So I'm going to go in with my panniers first, and then I'm going to put the other layers on. But that's actually because I've seen some evidence, there's some plates, some fashion plates and some prints and stuff that show that you would actually put your stays over your rumps or your under petticoat so that the little tabs or skirts that flare out continue their shape over. So that's what I'm going to do as well. And so first I'm actually going to put on my panniers. I've also made a pocket, like I made an emergency pocket before the concert so that I had the little pocket to take with me. But I can't find it anywhere right now, so I'm not going to put the pocket on. But I'm going to do panniers, a very plain 18th century inspired style petticoat, though this is much more gathered than it should be. And then stays. So let's put those on. So here are the panniers on. They've got all the ties that you can adjust, so you can kind of adjust how flat they lay and that kind of thing. But you can see they're super collapsible. So then we're going to go in with the petticoat. And technically the one I made is a petticoat, but the petticoat was basically just an underskirt. And that, because it's made of silk taffeta, would be a visible petticoat. You can wear as many as you want really, but the purpose of this one is to smooth out the shape because the hoops are quite noticeable, but by adding one petticoat over top, you actually smooth out the shape with the additional layers of fabric. God, my camera's not happy. That's cute. Okay, now stays. And for this I could do it by myself, but I'm not going to, because it's just easier to have someone to help, so stand by. Okay, so stays are on. Ta-da. This silhouette I find kind of hypnotizing. I don't know what it is. I'm a Victorian girl, I'm a 19th century girl, but there's something about it. So the stays are so much better. I can still feel them here. I don't know if it's something about my body, but like this is much, much better than they were before. And I've also cut down all the bones so that they're not sticking into me, obviously. But the other thing about these stays is that they are tight. You can see they're laced quite tightly, and you can see that there's quite a big gap at the back. So sometimes stays could be laced close even, but this is the silhouette. I think it's great. I find it really pretty, and there's some really intense work went into this, so I'm happy to have it work, and I think it would work as the foundations for an 18th century gown, and it will. So the last thing I need to put on is the petticoat. So the petticoat has a ruffle up from the hem, but that only goes around the front, so it's actually really easy to tell which side of the petticoat is the front and which one is the back. And like all 18th century skirts, it ties with tights like this. And that is it. You can see here that my panniers aren't super dramatic. They had much wider panniers. But I'm quite happy with this sort of ratio, I think. And also this, depending on the way you tie them, you can make them stand out a bit more like this, if you wanted to. It's to do with how you put the ties inside. But I think that's quite a pretty silhouette. Let me try and get you a full view. My camera, this is the only place in my whole sewing room where you could possibly see a full length, but it's also against the light, so my camera hates it. And that is it. Thank you so much for coming along and sprucing up this costume so that it can have a second life. This is something I'm really enjoying, is making sure that I don't make one wear things as much as possible, especially with like things that take so long to make, so that I can enjoy them further on in life. And so clearly I need to foray into the 18th century next, and I do have some stash fabric for a robe à la française I never got around to making, so maybe this is the time. As always, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you think, what 18th century thing you think I should make. And I'll see you around in the next video.